It's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Heidi Roth. I'm a registered dietitian as well as health coach, and welcome to the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare presentation of Eating for High Energy. So I've opened up the chat box, and please feel free to, if you would like, to ask me a question, comment. It's nice to know that there's other people out there while I'm presenting. So please feel free to use that feature if you would like. And we will get started. So our agenda today is talking about energy. What is energy? How is it produced? We all want to be energetic. We all want more energy. How do we go about that? What determines our energy levels? We'll be talking about healthy eating strategies to increase energy, supplements, and then just touching quickly on the role of exercise in energy as well. So let's get started. What is energy? Well, literally, when we talk about physical energy, it's the power generated in our cells that allows our body to function. And it's something called ATP. So where cars use, gasoline, our bodies use something called ATP. Now we also have mental energy, and this reflects our emotional state and that mind-body connection. We won't spend very much time on that today at all. In fact, we won't spend any time on that today at all, because that's, a whole nother topic, and we only have half an hour here. But just keeping in mind that our mental energy is really a big part of how energetic we feel as well. But when we talk about the physical energy, the literal production of energy in our cells, what are we talking about? We're talking about something called mitochondria. If you have kids, and maybe a middle schooler or a high school kid, I just asked my son this morning, I said, "Oh, and how's energy produced?" And he's like, "Mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell." Literally, those were his words. You probably maybe remember back from your own biology days hearing that. So what are mitochondria? Mitochondria are these little, organelles in cells. There you can see a little picture of it, and they take glucose, fatty acids, amino acids, and they kind of run it through a long chain of kind of chemical reactions to produce something called ATP, right? Adenosine triphosphate. So that's our major fuel. So just like, as I had said, cars use gasoline, we use ATP as a literal energy to, to function everything in our body. So every cell has a mitochondria except for mature red blood cells. And different cells will have varying amount of mitochondria. A muscle cell, a heart cell has so many more mitochondria than maybe like a bone cell that maybe doesn't do all that much. And so mitochondrial division, how many mitochondria we have, is stimulated by cell demand. So the more energy we demand, the more mitochondria you will have. So we want to keep our mitochondria in tip-top shape, because the better functioning our mitochondria are, the more energy is actually literally going to be produced. So remember when I said that mitochondria take, I know, don't worry, we're not going to spend much time on this slide at all. For those of you who have had biochemistry, you're still probably having nightmares about this. But this is something called the citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle. And this happens inside of the mitochondria. It's a chemical reaction. But what I wanted to show you with this, I'm seeing Andrea here saying, "Oh God, the flashbacks to AP Bio," right? What I wanted to show you with this was your body takes glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and here I have highlighted all the different nutrients that are needed to produce the fuel that we use. This is ATP, energy, right here. Things like lipoic acid, all vitamins, B1, B12, B3, coenzyme Q10, L-carnitine, glutathione, selenium, right? These are all different things that are needed to produce energy. So what else determines our energy levels? Our genes, right? So if you have two Energizer bunnies for parents, you're lucky. Most likely you might be an Energizer bunny yourself. Um, Circadian rhythms, hormones and brain chemicals like dopamine. Our age, as we grow older, we lose some of that mitochondrial function. Various illnesses, food, exercise, sleep, um, depression and anxiety can affect stress, right? We feel fatigued and low energy. That's that mental aspect of energy, all plays a part of this as well, in addition to just, the physical production of energy. But then, of course, things like alcohol, no surprise, right? So when are you at your best? Now, if I were to poll everyone, I would imagine that most of us would say that we're probably best in the morning, right? We're at our kind of our peak. And some of us are, we get up later than others. Some of us are early birds, but in general, most people are at their best first thing in the morning. And that's based on our circadian rhythm. And studies show that the time of day, typically right about now, is maybe when for many of us that post lunch dip happens, right? Anywhere from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., where we feel so much less energetic. Our alertness level goes down right after lunch. And so when we're planning on, you know, doing the difficult things that we have to do during our day, ideally it's better to do it in the morning because we're going to be more alert, we're going to have better memory speed, and we're going to feel a little bit more energetic. And then it does rise up again somewhat in the evening as well. But if you think of many other countries, when do siestas happen? Or you go to some European countries and they close their shops from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And why is that? Because most of us are feeling a little bit less energetic. They go home to rest, and then open up back up again. So now let's talk about our main strategy of the day, which is eating well for energy. And there's 5 different strategies that we can use to help us eat the best for our energy levels. So one is managing blood sugar levels. We're going to talk about eating real foods, mostly plant-based, increasing omega-3s, supplementing wisely, hydrating properly, and of course, exercise. So let's start first with managing blood sugar levels. And I would start by asking everyone a question. How do you feel when your blood sugar levels are low? Feel free to use the chat, or maybe you can just think to yourself. I would imagine most of us, when our blood sugar levels are low, you feel maybe cranky, hangry, tired, shaky, cold, tired, I'm seeing. So yeah, we don't feel great. Why is that? Well, how do we go about managing our blood sugar levels? Part of the reason why we feel that way is because when our blood sugar levels dip and our blood sugar levels get low, our body doesn't like that feeling. And our body says, hey, go eat something. Here's, I'm going to make you shaky. I'm going to make you cold. I'm going to make you tired so that you know that we don't want our blood sugar levels to get too low. Our body wants to maintain what we call homeostasis. Now, how do we go about doing that? Number one, I would have to say, is you don't need to eat every 2 hours. You don't need to eat every 3 hours. Our body is perfectly adapted to maintaining blood sugar levels if we're eating the right type of foods. So some people feel like they do much better with eating every 2 hours, every 3 hours, and that's perfectly fine. But keeping in mind that, if we're watching our weight, this all day long smorgasbord of eating every 2 to 3 hours, we're going to be eating a lot more calories. And if we are eating the right foods at meal times, we should be able to go, 3, 4, 5 hours between meals without needing to eat. And once again, doing what works best for you. But if we're combining high quality carbohydrates with protein and high quality fats, that should be able to keep our blood sugar levels a little bit more stable. And of course, limiting refined carbohydrates. I like this quote here from David Ludwig. He is a doctor here in Boston, and he says, since the dawn of our species, humans have consumed foods that are digested slowly, supporting our energy and metabolism for hours after eating. However, in our fast food culture, we have become dependent on high glycemic foods that are digested quickly and raise blood sugar rapidly. So that's when our blood sugar levels go up rapidly, and they also fall quickly too. And that's where we tend to be, shaky, cold, tired. So one of the things that maybe we can kind of keep an eye on is this concept of glycemic index. I don't know if anyone's heard of this before. Most likely you have, but if you compare all carbohydrates to glucose, and how quickly do they raise up your blood sugar levels? So glucose would be 100. Glucose raises up your blood sugar levels very, very quickly. So high glycemic index foods, things that raise up your blood sugar levels rapidly and are digested quickly, are things have a glycemic index over 70. So for an example would be something like instant oatmeal. Now, instant oatmeal, we think of maybe as a healthy type of food, and certainly oatmeal is healthy. However, much better to have a steel cut oats than instant oatmeal. Does anyone find that after eating instant oatmeal, an hour later, you're starving and shaky, hangry? So curious, let us know if you are. But many, many people have told me, instant oatmeal doesn't do well for me. And it makes sense because it raises our blood sugars so rapidly and then they fall rapidly as well. So much better would be doing something like steel cut oats. Steel cut oats have a low glycemic index. They don't raise our blood sugar rapidly. They take a while to cook, and they also take a while to digest. A high whole grain food like barley is 28, really, really low. So it doesn't have much effect on our blood sugar level. So, the in general, one of my rules, and I haven't seen studies on this, but this is kind of just my general rule, is that the longer something takes to cook, the better effect it's going to have on your blood sugar levels. So for example, instant oatmeal, no bueno for blood sugar levels, right? Raises them up really quickly. Steel cut oats take a while, much better. Things like barley takes an hour to cook. Brown rice takes much, much longer to cook than white rice and has a much better effect on our blood sugar levels. I'm seeing here someone has, let's see, someone asked, are steel cut or old fashioned better? Great question. Steel cut would be the best. Steel cut are the closest to, that whole natural whole grain oat. Old fashioned, they've been kind of steamed and steamrolled. And so they take a little bit less time to cook than the steel cut. And so they also are digested a little bit more quickly too. So old fashioned oats would be kind of somewhere in the middle for most people. Keeping in mind, all these things like white bread, white rice, crackers, bagels, oh my goodness, not only are they made with refined carbohydrates, but they are fairly big. So one bagel many times might be, 4 servings of bread in one bagel. So that's a lot. Keeping an eye out for hidden and added sugars, typically anything that ends in ose, fructose, glucose, maltose, lactose is a sugar. So when you're reading, labels, look for that ose. The only exception is sucralose. Sucralose is an artificial sugar, but otherwise, anything that ends in OSE is a sugar. Keeping in mind too that any type of syrup is also considered a sugar. So something like brown rice syrup, where we think of like, oh, brown rice, that's super healthy. Well, not so much once they turn it into a syrup. It functions more as a sugar. So a lot of kind of health food, granola bars, they tend to use a lot of brown rice syrup for multiple reasons, but one of them too is just that it has a little bit of a health halo, right? It sounds healthy. You don't look at your label and say, oh, brown rice syrup, like, oh, the first ingredient is sugar, which it is. And then here's just another chart of the glycemic index. Here's high glycemic index. Our blood sugar levels go up really rapidly, but then look what happens. They fall to lower than where they started. Low glycemic index foods, tend to be a little bit more stable. Okay, so when we talk about eating for energy, rule number 2 is eat real food. for so many reasons. We want to cut out the processed food as much as we can for our gut microbiome, for just avoiding chronic disease, for our weight, but also now for our energy levels. The more real food that we can eat, the better it's going to be. This was just interesting to me. I found a rodent study where they fed, the rodent chow, the rat food, you know, version of a junk food diet. And what they found was after 3 weeks of eating, this junk food, rat food diet, these rats performed really poorly in going through the maze. And they had decreased cognitive performance, decreased mental energy. And I would have to say, too, how do we feel after eating like crap for 3 weeks? Right? Maybe we've come back from vacation, we've had a lot of fried food, maybe not eating as healthy as we normally do. And kind of then you get back from vacation, and 2 weeks in, 2 weeks back, you think, oh, I'm so tired. Um, Part of that might just be because we have not eaten well. So keeping that in mind, eating less of these added sugars, refined grains, fast food, fried food, and eating more of this real food, lots of fruits and vegetables, healthy oils, right? Whole grains, lean protein, and seafood. I always like to go back to this healthy eating plate. This is put out by it's first came out, I believe now, oh gosh, now 15 years ago. But I think Harvard came out, yeah, about 15 years ago. Gosh, can't believe it's been that long. But anyways, half the plate, this is a great visual. Half of our plate, we want it to be vegetables and fruits, and then whole grains for a quarter of the plate, and then healthy protein. Once again, it can be whatever type of protein that we want. If we're plant-based, it could be coming from nuts and legumes and tofu and whatever plant-based proteins we might be eating. I do like with this one that they say water. You don't need to drink milk. If you like milk, that's fine. But ideally, dairy is best consumed in a fermented form. So something like yogurt or cheese or kefir is better than just drinking a glass of milk. Milk sometimes just by itself can be kind of pro-inflammatory for some people. And then healthy oils, olive oil, definitely one of the healthiest oils that you can use. Keeping, trying to make sure that you include some of that too. And here is, some green foods also is very good. Here's another study that I found that kind of made me feel good, because for years I had been handing out this recipe called energizing green smoothies. If any of you have ever been to one of my food demos, maybe you've seen me do this energizing green smoothie. And I was always a little worried that somebody would ask me, Heidi, what's the science behind, why are you calling this energizing? And, I thought, well, I would tell them, well, it makes me feel energetic. And, greens make a lot of people feel energetic. But then I came across a study and I said, aha, I have a scientific reason for calling this an energizing green smoothie. And basically, nitrates that are found in vegetables like green lettuce, celery, beets, spinach, these inorganic nitrates can increase the capacity for ATP synthesis. So basically, by eating green smoothies, we are going to be producing more fuel, right? We're going to be helping our mitochondria to be more efficient, to be able to produce more ATP. So go have some greens, go have a green smoothie. There's some science behind why it's energizing. And then, so number 3 out of 5 on eating healthy for high energy would be increasing omega-3 fatty acids. Now, omega-3 fatty acids are, known for many things, right? We know that they can help prevent heart disease, they can decrease inflammation. But what's really important too is that these omega-3 fatty acids, that they are essential for brain health, and they're also really essential for our mitochondrial membranes. So if we have insufficient amount of omega-3 fatty acids, our mitochondria are not going to be working efficiently. So this is kind of a true example of you are what you eat. By eating these omega-3s, our body incorporates it into cell membranes in our brain and, these mitochondrial membranes as well. So what are the different types of omega-3 fatty acids? Well, the two main types that our body uses are something called DHA and EPA. And most of the health benefits are found from these two. Alpha linolenic acid, ALA, is found in plants. And so, but our body has to convert it into the DHA and EPA. Some of us are really good at converting, some of us not so much. A lot of it is genetic. But this is where we find the health benefits. So where do you find this? Things like fatty fish, salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, all of these are great sources of those omega-3 fatty acids. Tuna has some omega-3 fatty acids, but we tend to not use tuna as much because it does have some mercury. Eggs is a great example of you are what you eat. So when chickens are allowed to forage and they're allowed to eat greens and insects and, or they're fed, chicken food with omega-3s in it, guess what? They produce eggs that contain omega-3s. You are what you eat. And so that's why the eggs can say on them contains, 70 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids. If chickens are not fed chicken feed with any omega-3s, they don't produce eggs with omega-3s. So keeping in mind, for us, it's the same thing. Now, somebody here had mentioned that that they are allergic to fish. Are there any other suggestions? Well, you can take, to get the DHA, you can take something, you can take an algae supplement. And the fish eat the algae, and that's how they get their omega-3s, through that long chain, the food chain. So, if you're looking for DHA, you can supplement with some an algae supplement if you are plant-based. You can also do if you're not allergic to fish, obviously you could do a fish oil supplement. But if you are, an algae supplement may work. Alpha linolenic acid, as I had mentioned, it's just partially converted by the body. It's not, as good as eating, the fatty fish or some of the other sources. But you find a lot of this in things like leafy greens. Brussels sprouts even have some omega-3s. Flaxseed, chia seeds, not all nuts. Walnuts are the main one. Brazil nuts a little bit, chestnuts a little bit as well. But things like almonds are a great source of healthy fats, but not omega-3s. So if you really want the omega-3 fatty acids, go for the walnuts would be your best bet there. Okay, so number 4 is to use supplements wisely. Now, I am very much of a whole foods person. How can we get the nutrition that we need from whole, real foods? But sometimes, everyone always asks me, well, there are some supplements that I should consider. I'm already eating a great diet. Is there anything else I could try? So studies show that coenzyme Q10 is an enzyme involved in the production of it helps in the production of ATP in the mitochondria. There's and it's been shown to increase exercise capacity. If you go back to that citric acid cycle from what you remember, right? You need a lot of different vitamins, all the B vitamins, B12. Magnesium also is used in so many different chemical reactions in our body that if we're deficient in magnesium, that could cause some problems too. And magnesium is one of those minerals that is a very, very safe thing to supplement with. If you are vegan and 100% plant-based, L-carnitine is one of those things that some people debate. L-carnitine is an amino acid derivative. It's found mostly in meat, but our body does produce it as well. But if you are vegan and finding maybe your energy levels are a little bit low, that would be maybe one thing to consider as well. Oh, and I'm seeing here somebody, Astrid, you had mentioned that magnesium supplements help sleep too. Absolutely. And when we sleep well, guess what? We feel so much better the next day and so much more energetic. Um, Avoid supplements with stimulating herbs like mahuang, guarana, I can never say that, ephedra, uhembe. These, kind of think of these as robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? They're not real energy. You're stressing your adrenal glands out. You will produce more energy in the short term, but at the end of the day, you may be stressing your adrenal glands, and you may feel more tired than ever. Um, so really, I would avoid those. You can consider some caffeine. Caffeine is considered a drug because it does kind of cross that blood-brain barrier. But so much of the research on caffeine is done by the US Army, right? Because they're always looking for ways to keep their soldiers maybe a little bit more alert, better performing. And we do know that caffeine has a lot of advantages for it. The new dietary guidelines say that we can have up to 4 cups of coffee per day. But keep in mind that caffeine is considered a drug. Use it appropriately. You can develop a tolerance to it. So the more caffeine that you're using, the less really beneficial effects that it's going to have, because we do kind of develop this tolerance to it. And also keeping in mind, not having it after 12 p.m. Some people can have it a little bit later. People that are fast caffeine metabolizers can use it a little bit later, but keeping that in mind. And then number 5 would be to hydrate properly, right? How do we feel when we're even hypohydrated? So not dehydrated, but just even mildly, hypohydrated. This can impair our cognitive function. It can kind of make us feel less alert, increase in tiredness and headaches. So keeping in mind, just to stay well hydrated, and drinking plenty of hydrating water. During the wintertime, I have a hard time drinking cold water. So I end up drinking a lot of, herbal teas and green tea. Stay away from energy drinks. Energy drinks have caffeine in them, but you're not getting all the benefits from the caffeine that you would get when you consume it in the form of coffee or tea, right? There's so many other of these phytochemicals that come along with it in coffee and tea to balance out the effects of the caffeine. Energy drinks too are really high. They potentially can be high in sugar, with really wide variations in caffeine. So, try to get the caffeine. If you are consuming caffeine, get it in its natural form. And kind of, the one thing that I want everyone to take away from here is that what foods energize you? We are all different. So paying attention. Does instant oatmeal work for you, or are you shaky, hungry, and feeling lethargic an hour later? What works for you? Just some different foods that energize me. Healthy types of carbohydrates, green tea, and then lastly, exercise. It's this what we call the exercise paradox, right? There's 4 different ways that exercise makes you more energetic. It's a paradox because we think when we're exercise, we're going to be more tired, but we actually get more energy because mitochondria, remember, if you remember, I said is stimulated by demand. So the more we demand of our mitochondria, the more they divide and the more efficient they are. And exercise gives you increased oxygen carrying capacity. It affects levels of various hormones, and it increases the time that you spend in deep sleep, as well as REM sleep as well. So, as we are out of time, kind of think to yourself, what can you take away to put into action? We talked about a lot of different things. What's your main takeaway? Did you have any aha moments? And maybe it was just all review and just kind of a good reminder, but hopefully everyone was able to take away something. So much for joining me here today. I appreciate all the comments and the questions, and it's nice to have some interaction with everybody as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our share. If we have any last questions, we can answer them quickly, but otherwise, we'll say goodbye to everyone. So have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you again for joining me.